So good morning, everyone, and good morning to our panel today. Thank you very much for coming over and joining us today, despite the other events, the big events that are happening as well. To introduce my panel today, first of all, I'm Paolo Miranda. I'll be the moderator for today, and our esteemed panelists definitely are coming from the various backgrounds of BFSI. We have, first of all, Reuben Athaide. He's the head of cybersecurity and also the DevSecOps team for Standard Chartered Bank. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, a round of applause, please. And then we have Frankie Shuai from DWS Group. He's the APAC RISO, the Regional Information Security Officer. We also have Jonathan Chan, the head of Launchpad, Julius, Baer. A round of applause for them, please. So I think we're a bit overrun in terms of the timing, so we'll go straight to the point. Today we'll be discussing a lot about the future of Web 3.0 or Web 3, as we call it. But first of all, probably I'd like to ask each of our panelists to give a short introduction of yourselves. And what is your favorite thing that you use nowadays? And basically just anything that you want to use, or your mobile or whatever, and probably your favorite app. Okay, probably to start with Reuben. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Hi. Hi, everyone. Reuben Athaide at Standard Chartered Bank Cybersecurity Advisory. So basically in this role, I'm looking more at applications and making sure that we're secure by design when we're building anything or buying anything and deploying to multiple platforms, be it on-prem or in the cloud, and SaaS as well. And then, obviously in security, we have a lot of policies trying to automate that and break that into pipeline. We heard this morning from the ThoughtWorks gentleman about, developer experience, and that's a lot of what we try to do to try to reduce the friction, but still make sure that the things are secure by design. What app and what things I like to use? Well, I'm quite an Apple fan, so I'm in the Apple, been in the Apple sort of ecosystem for quite a long time. Love my iPad, and my favorite app, well, I read a lot of the news, so I like the Financial Times, and there's a journal app, so I used to use a lot of notepads, okay. But then, you get tired of lugging that around, so I've just switched to using everything digital, and I have a digital journal and use that quite a bit.
So you practice what you preach, everything digitalized.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Reuben. Let's go now to Frankie.
Hello. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Frankie. I'm coming from DWS Group. DWS actually is a Deutsche Bank asset management. So we're one of the largest asset management in the financial industry. We have about 800 billion euro asset under management. So it's one of the largest one globally. And in APAC, we have 5 countries operating. So I'm overseeing all this, 9 countries operating. So I'm overseeing on the cybersecurity for all this in the business in the region here. Prior to this role, I joined actually this year. So previously, I was working in UBS Bank as actually the head of cyber and tech risk for 3 markets, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand. Come back to your question, what's my favorite thing? I always like to try things new. Actually, I used to be, the innovator. Now I'm still innovator. So I have the patent file at the US Patent and Trademark Office as a sole inventor. It's talking about next generation, the wireless networking, because at the time I was working in HP Innovation Lab. So HP actually is really, it's actually the Hewlett and Packard. This is really a big name for the innovation in the Silicon Valley many years ago. But now still, it's more focused on electronics side, but not on the more on the software side, but they're still actually inventing this area.
So do you have a current new toy that you're playing around with nowadays?
Yes. So all these are Python things. So I'm still can do programming. I'm doing now. Yep.
I see.
At my spare time.
Okay, thanks a lot, Frankie. How about Jonathan? Yeah.
So, hi everyone. So I'm John. I lead the the innovation lab at Julius Baer. So Julius Baer is we're a pure play private bank, Swiss private bank. Launchpad is our innovation lab based out of Singapore, and we drive innovation for the group globally. Essentially what our team does is we look at new future technologies, experiment, and figure out how we actually can use things like generative AI, digital assets, and explore how we actually change the way and disrupt ourselves as an organization. Some things that I like to do, I think if you ask me about an app on my phone, I think for me it's really just the gaming, because that allows me to really connect with my kids. So I spend a lot of time in my own time, right? Really playing games with my kid together, my 10-year-old.
So what's your favorite game?
Now he's into Brawl Stars, so I've got to pick up the pace on that. So whenever I'm commuting, I'm just basically trying to keep up with him.
Oh, okay. Thanks a lot, John. And so you mentioned also about generative AI, and I think there are a lot of developments on that as well. I think I'll just open it up to the panel on what do you think will be the opportunities for the BFSI industry and how it will develop in terms of the Web 3.0 scenario and the technologies. What do you think is happening in your space right now? Reuben, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, before doing this, I spent a lot of time building trading apps. So this was last 20 years doing that. And obviously, there's been a lot that's happened with emerging technologies that's changed that whole landscape. And it's reduced margins, but also it has an opportunity. It is revolutionary, and it is an opportunity to kind of gain a lot of efficiencies in the market and a lot of growth as well. So I think what we're seeing is like we can have a lot of efficiencies with regards to settlement. Also on the identification, the KYC side of things, there's a lot that can be done there. And in particular, I think with Web 3.0 and the technology behind it, which is blockchain, which is centered around trust, which opens up a lot of avenues. It's what we would like to see and what we think will happen is a lot of transparency and a lot of bespoke sort of tailored solutions for customers.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that and sharing what you think will happen in terms of the BFSI. But are you actually implementing something now towards that for Web 3.0?
I think the technology is still nascent and it still needs to mature quite a bit. So for now, it's not so much, it's a bit of wait and watch, it's a bit of experimenting and doing a few different projects and understanding the best, what's the best design and what's the best use case for it. I think that's where we're at.
Okay, thanks for that, Reuben. On your side, Frankie? Yeah,
definitely we should talk about ChatGPT. We cannot avoid. Before talking about the details, let me share a few numbers first. ChatGPT, they reach 100 million users within 2 months only. 100 million, which is 20 times of our Singapore population. They only reach within 2 months. As a comparison, TikTok is also a popular application. They reach 100 million users, took them about 9 months. Instagram reached the same number, 100 million users, took them 2 years, 2.5 years. So you can see the fast change, but why it is so popular? To be honest, AI is not something new. Many years ago, actually, when I did my master's degree study, it is about AI. But at the time, AI is not mainstream. It is only one part of actually the IT or computing other things. Why it becomes so popular, especially within the last 6 months when generative AI, especially ChatGPT, becomes alive. Fundamentally, actually, there are 3 things about AI, about training. Data, the original, the training data source. Second is about the technology, which is a computing power. You can process the data. Third, but not also very important, is the people, the data scientists, the people train the data. All these 3 have to come together. Why in the past AI was sitting there is not so popular? Because we do have the people. We do have a lot of actually the people research on the artificial intelligence, image processing, video processing, all these. We have people. But our technology, the computing power was not there enough. Only recently, you look at how the Telegram from 2G, 3G, 4G, now 5G, and also the CPU involving the processing speed. They lay the technical foundation. That's why we have the people, we have technology. Come back to the third point, the data set. Yes, it's a lot of companies, we have their own in-house, the innovation lab, our AI lab, our AI data science team. Some of them are quite successful, some of them still evolving. Why? Another struggle point for them, they do not have enough training data in-house. Because financial industry is a well-regulated industry. We cannot freely use the data, share the data, leak the data. We have to use the data in a responsible way. But for 𝐄𝐝𝐢𝐴𝐼, they are huge data set. They have been used and trained. That's why they have come up with a wonderful training model. I believe most of us, we have used a Wikipedia already. Wikipedia is very powerful, actually, search engine. Any key items you put there, you can give you a very wonderful, comprehensive illustrations, background, what's the use case in the industry. But Wikipedia only occupies 3% of the overall data set 𝐄𝐝𝐻 has been using for training the first generation 𝐄𝐝𝐻. Only 3%, whereas another 95% maybe only Microsoft OpenAI, they knows. But now it's 𝐄𝐝𝐻4, the data is more evolving because every day, as an individual user, as an enterprise, when you key in a question into 𝐄𝐝𝐻 command, actually they are taking your inputs. And then we'll combine all these inputs, become their new training data sets. That's why their training data set is exponentially growing. Now, as I said, three fundamental things: data, technology, and people. They have all these three together. That's why it's so powerful now. Another thing is about the technology is I believe most of us, we are having the technology background, is when we look at the new things, okay, computing power increase, move to the cloud, great, but that is more like the people IQ side. For the first time, 𝐄𝐝𝐻 is more looking, they are more good at the people EQ side. They could write good English paper, they could summarize the tons of the documentation for you, and they can even do the better green program coding for you. That's the EQ part of people. People realize, oh my God, technology could not just focus on IQ side. Now they are better my EQ assistant. That's why so many people, more than 100 users, only reach 𝐄𝐝𝐻 less than 2 months. Back to the financial industry, the Web 3.0. To be honest, 𝐄𝐝𝐻 is actually the foundation. It's not Web 3, it's Web 2. Why I say so is because we know Web 1.0 is something you can read. In the old days, let's say the website, you go to website, you read the news, that is something you can read. Web 2.0 is something you can read and write, so-called the social web, like the Facebook or this kind of TikTok, other things. You are part of this big social ecosystem. You can contribute, you can digest. That's a two-way communication. Similarly for our banking, online banking or mobile banking, you can input your inquiries, you can get the information out. That's a two-way, that's Web 2.0. Actually, 𝐄𝐝𝐻, you look at this, 𝐄𝐝𝐻 is laid the foundation is on Web 2.0, but not Web 3.0. Why? I'll come to this point. Web 3.0 is about something you can read, write, and execute. It's more about decentralization. It's more about the unique value, the transparency about the traceback. But to be honest, Web 3.0 has not really embraced the first wave of 𝐄𝐝𝐻. It's true. But second wave, third wave of 𝐄𝐝𝐻 definitely will be part of Web 3. Why? Because the unique things, actually a lot of things they are concerned, the governments, especially financial industries, were concerned about the usage of 𝐄𝐝𝐻. It's about the privacy and security and copyright. Some of them could be resolved in the Web 3.0, such as the copyright and traceback. We know that, so currently, if you are personally, you log in to your 𝐄𝐝𝐻, you input your question, they will give you an answer. But they will not tell you where the data source, which articles or which other website you grab the idea. For the end user, it's fine. But for the enterprise, especially for the banking, financial industries, this is not something right. We have to trace back. We have to provide our customers, our regulators, the confidence. Whatever a conclusion or statement is based on something else is something we can list down. Or this is based on because the business of the banking is a business of trust. But this could be resolved of the Web 3.0. Web 3.0.
Yeah, sorry to cut you short there, Frankie, but let's give a chance to John as well. Thanks for sharing on the data part and the regulatory part. But maybe, John, on your side, you can also share what's been developing on Web 3.0, not just in terms of AI, but other things as well.
I think one of the big things is we look at it from two angles, right? One is you have on the front end, right? The one that's impacting our clients, our users on the front end, but there's also another aspect which is on the back end as well, which is really looking at it from an operational standpoint itself. So how do we actually look at both the front and the back separately, but at the same time, make sure that there is interoperability as well. On the front side, what we've looked at, what we've seen a lot on is really around tokenization. We've seen a lot around how decentralized finance is actually going to have a potential impact on us in the future. We're really looking at how do we explore the implementation of these technologies more than anything else, from tokenization of illiquid assets or physical properties, for example, and turning them into liquid assets that, and digital assets itself that can actually be easily traded. On the back-end side, we're looking at how smart contract, how the blockchain can actually have an impact, and by being able to use smart contracts, we'll be able to automate a lot of the workflows and also increase the efficiency when we talk about settlement as well. So I think the key thing when we talk about Web3 is not just about how organizations are going to be using it, but it's also about how organizations are going to interact with each other, and the interoperability is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we see. They're making sure that because if you're using, for example, if you're using Ethereum versus someone else who's using another chain, right, we have an interoperability challenge there. So how do we have, as an industry, look at interoperability as a means to be able to make it more efficient for all of us, right, to take it to the next stage of development itself?
I mean, those are two contrasting concepts, right? You talk about interoperability, but at the same time, you talk about decentralization, which, as Frankie mentioned, as well as one of the features of Web 3.0. And of course, there's other concepts like trustless, and also in terms of permissionless kind of arrangements in terms of the technology. How would you reconcile all these, and what are the risks you see around these features of Web 3.0? Maybe Reuben, you'd like to share on that as well?
Yeah, no, I think it's go back to what John was saying, right? So I think there's still quite a bit of work to be done around that interoperability. And when you say, so with the decentralization, we're still working through it to see what governance is required. So there will definitely be governance required, and so far there are a number of different ways that you can do things on a different platforms on level one, right? So, but it's the bridges and the connections between them is what is being worked out still. So I think it was interesting you mentioned about the interoperability. Have you connected anything as such, or?
We have, however, I think one of the challenges is really is between organizations more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
How do we work together on this, right?
So I think what it does is actually it opens up new ecosystems and new business models. So it's like from a BFSI standpoint, it's new business models. Right? I think what we're seeing is like we're having to adapt to doing more of like banking as a service. So more embedded finance, right? You're not going to be the storefront. You can just be providing this. You're providing liquidity. You're providing your book, and that's how you're connecting to the different customers. Ultimately, it will help us on the front end build better solutions and have better customer experience. But it's through connecting to different ecosystems and opening up new business models.
And how do you see the major players right now in terms of the incumbents, in terms of interoperability and connectivity, like in terms of the banking sector in general, like the SWIFTs of the world? So what do you see the impact, and what are they doing about Web 3.0 as well?
So I think the cross-border and payments is a big one. Like that's it's very expensive. I mean, it's like, transferring money across in the banking network can cost a lot of money. I mean, every month when I have to transfer my mortgage back to Canada, it's just, I mean, fortunately I found this app called Wise, and I think they use them on the rail, right? It's much cheaper with them. So there is a lot of avenue for breaking down that silo, taking away those, taking away any third-party involvement. And that's something that I think is, there's a lot of experiments happening, right? I think if you see, JP Morgan did something a while back where they use something a digital coin to settle between their own entities cross border. So that's one that's big on the list that we're experimenting with as well.
Yeah, you just mentioned about digital coins, right? Is anyone here working on like crypto kind of solutions as well? Because I mean, blockchain technology can be applied to several, technologies as well, several solutions. One major thing that went out was the crypto exchange. Are the banks moving towards this as well, creating your own crypto markets?
Maybe I can talk about this because crypto is part of actually a strategic goals. Before coming to about the cryptos things, let me lay some foundation first, because I always like to lay some foundation to make sure we all have common understanding. Blockchain is only one part of actually the underlying technology called DLT, Distributed Ledger Technology, which is a decentralization technology. Blockchain is one of them, but the most popular topology lay on this DLT. On top of DLT, there are two main streams use case. One is digital asset, another about digital currency. Digital currency, we often talk about cryptocurrency, is only one cut of the digital currency. On the digital currency, we have another part, which is called stablecoin, which they are linked to the fiat currency. Another part is about CBDC, central bank digital currency. These three main actually are part of the three mainstream of a digital currency. Go to another part, I'll talk about digital asset. Digital asset, there are also a few actually on the subgroup. Some is already in the financial market, we have the bond, we have futures, we have securities, we tokenize them, we digitize them, so-called asset tokenization. That is very popular now. Even the government is very keen on this. For example, the Hong Kong government has been the first government globally issue the green bond last month or 2 months ago globally. So they combine both asset tokenization and the ESG, the green finance together has been the first one. Singapore is also actually doing well in this one. Last year, the Singapore FinTech Festival, we also a lot of topics about this. Another set about which is a non-traditional asset tokenization, NFT, non-fungible token, or other things, not actually treated as the financial product, but now they are using the same kind of tokenization, digitization. That's why we so-called the non-traditional asset tokenization. So now we have clear understanding digital currency, digital asset. Come back to your question about the digital currency, right? Yes, actually digital currency, as I shared, CBDC is one of them, cryptocurrency is one for them. For the crypto, Singapore government, they are very actually cautious. So we know they have come out of the PSA, Payment Service Act, to regulate the cryptocurrency exchange. One of the crypto, actually PSA, is have 4 pillars. The first one actually is about system interoperability, the one just now we talk about. Second one is about anti-money laundering. Third one is about investor protection. That is very important. Last but not least is about technology risk, cyber risk management. So this also involved. Come back to CBDC, actually just read the news. Actually last month, China has been the government globally. They issued the CBDC, the digital currency, the central bank, the issue to their government officer in one of the cities, small city called Tangshu near Shanghai, which means from that month onwards, all the government officers, they will not receive their renminbi cash, no more. They will only issue the central bank issued digital currency. So which means they are trying to do as a test. So there's actually much broader ecosystem. We will keep the eye open on this.
Can I just jump in there?
Okay, sure, Reuben.
So I think it's a good thing. Yeah, a lot of people are doing experiments with CBDCs. But if you look at it, it comes down to there needs to be enough of volume and value for the end user, right? So in the countries, so China, India, Brazil, for that matter, have very good payment systems. So So yes, you can try CBDCs, and there are other countries that have done it. But in these places, it's not such an urgency, or actually they're experimenting, but it's not such an urgency because the payment systems in these places they're working and they're very good, right? And the whole idea, as we're saying around Web 3.0, is this transparency and inclusivity, right? And with the payment systems you've got in these countries, with WeChat, WePay, all that sort of stuff, it is being inclusive, right? I mean, you can go buy something at a wet market and you can pay, right? So that solution is there. That problem is being solved. So it depends where there is a need, right, for that to actually
yes, it
take
depends
off.
on use case. Like in Singapore here, actually, we are more focusing on doing the pay now integration. The government is very keen on this. Connect with Malaysia, connect with India, connect with nearby Asian countries we can make the payment. In the past is T+2, T+1. Now it's almost near real time. So that's the use case, actually real use case.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the use cases on the banking and the financial sector side. How about from the insurance perspective, right? We talk about digital assets, for example. From the insurance space, normally we're used to insuring our assets, our physical assets. How would you now go about insuring digital assets? Probably John, since you have some background on the insurance industry, what are your thoughts on this?
I think there's one challenge really when we talk about insuring these when you take a physical asset and then you tokenize it and it becomes a digital asset now, how do you really look at the verification, right? Being able to verify that this is authentic, this actually exists. For example, if you take a painting, right? If you tokenize a painting, and it's a physical painting, not a digital NFT, not an image, right? It's sitting somewhere in a gallery somewhere in the world. There needs to be some form of ability to track, ability to verify that it still is that painting, it's still there, it's kept in certain conditions that you're able to ensure that the value of it is still kept intact.
That's actually the promise of blockchain, right? So to actually provide that traceability.
It's traceability on the blockchain, right? But if we're talking about physical asset, it's still a physical good that's sitting somewhere in a room somewhere. That therefore, in that sense, we typically look at it on the basis that we need some form of a organization or some form of a intermediary that is able to verify and manage that trust around that this asset continues to be there. If not, I could tokenize a painting, sell those tokens, and then sell the painting. And who is really responsible for ensuring that that painting is still supposed to be where it is for those token holders itself? It's a huge challenge, right? I think when we look at, I spent some time in insurance many years back. We looked at really around using blockchain around tracking. We use it a lot for tracking, verification of where items are as a ledger itself, right? But we tag it a lot to sensors. So we use IoT devices, sensors that allow us to be able to understand, for example, if it's a musical instrument, that the sensors are placed on the instrument so that we know that this $20,000, $30,000, or $100,000 violin, for example, we know where it is around the world itself, and that we can verify that this is the actual instrument in itself. So I think it's a marriage of different technologies that allows us to be able to take things to the next level. I think we're still in the very early nascent stage of it, as what Reuben mentioned, right? It's also because the usability, right? The user experience, why I think ChatGPT has been able to have such huge proliferation is a couple of reasons, right? One is there is a huge audience that is marketing it using social media. I think social media growth has exploded over the last 3 years as well with new platforms like TikTok and all that. And that proliferation helps to really get people using this tool. But the other piece is really the way that the huge innovation that OpenAI has done with ChatGPT is really around the whole user experience and making it accessible and easy for someone to understand how, or rather experience how it is, maybe not understand, but experience how the AI is able to interact with you. And I think even when we talk about Web3 today, we talk about cryptocurrencies, the exchanges have made it easy for the regular consumer on the street to be able to purchase cryptocurrencies. Now, do they understand how that works? Hard to say, right? But it's really about the user experience that then translates into whether or not something is able to be adopted at a mass scale itself.
Thanks.
That's actually the point I just now mentioned is the EQ part, not just RQ part. we talk about technology advance, so we talk too much about the IQ part. EQ is very important to interact with people, to get people understand you, you understand people better. That's why the power of the ChatGPT is EQ part.
Yeah, so I think in terms of being widespread, easy to use, is there a roadmap right now in terms of going there for Web 3.0? Is it something that you're looking at developing? Because right now it's, from what I've heard, is actually more about experimentation, right? Is there a drive in the market to actually reach to a more mature level for Web 3.0?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there is a drive. It's coming. It's going to be there. But it's still experimenting to kind of look at what is the right use case and where you could use it. Efficiencies stands out, and especially, like I said, in trading, the margins have gone down. So there is definitely a value in trying to drive down the cost of the trade using the technology, the blockchain, and you can use reduce the cost of trade. On the AI front, embedding AI into the pricing, you can actually have preemptive, you can look at patterns and preemptive analytics to give better solutions and structuring of trades for your customers. So that's another helpful thing that we're looking at. Just tying into the insurance bit that John was mentioning, right? Yeah, while you still have to physically verify something, in trade finance, you can reduce the insurance costs of financing, the transfer of the goods, because you can leverage the blockchain and IoT to make sure that something has, when it has left a warehouse, that warehouse is it's protected, it's whatever security needs to be around it, it's on the truck where it is going, all that sort of stuff. So being able to track these things while there needs to still be some physical verification and putting it onto the chain, the fact that you can do it much easily now with technology, you actually then reduce the cost of the insurance and the cost of the trade.
Okay, yeah, very good point there, Reuben. Anyone else has their own thoughts on how can we actually make it more ubiquitous in terms of Web 3.0? Because in terms of the use cases that you have, since you're experimenting right now, when will the stage be when we're actually ready to make it more widespread?
So actually, there's a lot of use case, not just on the proof of concept phase. There's some already actually implementing the market. The typical use cases in the blockchain or Web3 is about smart contracts. Smart contract, to make it simple, is because in the past, to do the business, why the cost is so high, because why the friction is there, because sometimes supplier, they do not know each other. They have to depend on the third party as trust authority to guarantee, okay, I pay the money, I will get the service. Or the other side is, I provide service, I will receive the money. So they are sitting in the intermediary way. And there's a lot of the legal documentations in between, especially for the trade finance. So for the shippings, all those kind of things, the time cost involved and the administrative work. Smart contract actually is a very good use case in the Web3 and blockchain is a business logic. You set up the terms and condition. Automatically, it will execute once the condition has been reached. You do not have to rely on the legal. You do not have to rely on the authorities to sit down there, tell you, okay, both parties, your condition has met, then you can do your transaction, you can do all the shipment, all this. Now it's automatically, but the business logic has been well protected. That's the security part. The security practitioner where to play the role here. So once business logic is reached, then they execute. This kind of smart contract concept actually is not actually applicable for the financial industry, actually all other industries. Actually, as long as you have multiple parties playing in the picture, you can rely on the smart contract. That's why we can see the huge potential of the smart contract. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, thanks for that, Frankie. From the infrastructure perspective, right, because blockchain as we know it is resource hungry, and in terms of computing power, what would be the avenues that you actually look at nowadays to actually support that infrastructure in the future? What would you be doing right now, for example, at Julius, Baer, John?
I think we think about it from the infrastructure perspective, right? It's the ability to scale infrastructure today is vastly, the gap is wider compared to 5, 10 years ago, right? So the ability for us to scale some of this infrastructure is massive. Now, the bigger question is really going to be, how do we look at it, and how do we look at the infrastructure from compliance, regulatory, security standpoint that allows us to be able to operate in this form itself? What we do, we are exploring a lot of things on public blockchains as compared to looking at private ones, right? So right now is really about understanding, building out a playbook in terms of how do we actually look at, how do we actually assess, and how do we actually be able to deploy certain solutions with all the guardrails that we have to in place, so that we can do it in a safe manner for our clients. I think that is one of the key things. So whenever we look at it from our client perspective, how do we ensure that we as an organization, which our clients entrust us with their generational wealth, to be able to make sure that we help preserve this in that form itself.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, of course, it's easier to scale these days. But now we're also making a conscious effort to look at the sustainability of the infrastructure and how you know, what basically, even when you're a term that has been used quite a bit recently is around green IT. And I was looking it up and I was thinking, what's
ESG
everyone,
in general.
Yeah, what's everyone going on about, right? But it's just about, like, even when you're coding, about getting efficiency in how you're coding. And then if you look at the data centers, and so it all depends. It's either like the public blockchain. So a lot of the public blockchains actually are using their infrastructure is powered by renewable sources. And then also some of the experiments that are being done across financial institutions and with central banks or what have you, those data centers as well, they look at how efficient they run, right? They're trying to drive efficiencies. I mean, so there is a I guess what I want to say is that there is a conscious effort around trying to make sure that, yes, these things require a lot of scale, they require a lot of compute, but how do we do that in a more efficient way by focusing on where that power is coming from to generate that compute?
I mean, anyone else would like to add?
I would say let's learn from history. To look at how cloud computing has been evolved in the past 10 years. A lot of lessons, best practice, or mistakes, we can learn from them when we come to the Web 2.0 or ChatGPT areas, about the data security, about data protection, about let's say the transparency. A lot of things actually we can learn. Let's say using ChatGPT as example. Last week, I read the news that now they give the user capability to delete your search history. This is improvement from the security perspective, because in the past, whatever you search on the ChatGPT, you will keep record. Next time we are logging, we will list down all your past history. That is some concerns, right, from the privacy, from security. That's at Google's, Facebook, that has been forced to provide this capability to allow the user to delete the history. But now ChatGPT, they're also coming up. They're also doing the same thing. So that's why they are learning the history. They are learning. We also can learn it.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to ask that question on security versus privacy versus innovation. With Web 3.0, normally, basically, you want it to be, ubiquitous, it'd be widespread, be visible, transparent. It's how do you strike that balance? Because even for cybersecurity, you can never be too secure. Because as you know, it only takes one to actually get inside your systems. But you have to protect everything, the whole perimeter, even outside. But from your perspective, what are the things that you are doing right now in terms of securing this infrastructure for Web 3.0 that you're planning, and also blockchain in general? Yeah.
Maybe I can step a little bit. Last year, I was part of a working group organized by Singapore, the government, the cybersecurity regulator, CSA, Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore. So this working group, we come together from the big financial institutions, from the cryptocurrency exchange, definitely from the also the CSA. So we come together, we work out actually the working paper. Then early this year, CSA published as an advisory paper to secure, design, and implement the DLT, the distribute ledger technology, which is the one I said at the beginning. Actually, this is the best practice. Actually, the government, they are already looking into this and they recommend to industry to look into it, not look at the usage part, but also how to use in a safe and sound manner. Even like from a data privacy perspective, the Singapore, our PDPC on the IMDA, they also have the last year, actually they have the paper about the recommendation about from a data privacy perspective, how can we better secure and use a blockchain. They divide into permissionless and the permissioned the blockchain and provide recommendation, the data masking on these other things. Actually, that's a very good guide I recommend. So when you go to this implementation, so a lot of the reference, actually the Singapore government, they are very supportive in this area. We should, similar, actually the other countries, they have similar, actually the framework they're coming up. So yeah, definitely a good resource we can leverage on.
Yeah, thanks for sharing about this development. How about you, Reuben?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's still about the fundamentals, and given like even before getting to Web 3.0, if you see the last couple of years, everyone's working from home and from wherever, right? Identity is key. So we're focusing a lot on making sure things are driven by identity, how you're capturing that identity, and giving least privilege access, but just in time for what is required. So understanding your whole risk posture, and you talked about like it's spread out and all that sort of stuff. But I guess what it comes down to, the parameter has changed, so identity is key, doing the whole risk posture review, and also, facing a breach or facing some sort of cybersecurity incident is probably inevitable. It's how you react to it and how prepared you are. So doing some tabletop exercises, making sure that you have a plan and you know how to counter it when you're tackled with something like that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Reuben. Talking about plans as well, right? How do you envision the future of Web 3.0 and all the emerging tech that's coming up? Maybe John, you'd like to share something on this, even from your own perspective or from your own company?
Well, I think there is going to be a convergence in time to come, right? In terms of we're seeing a lot of different topics or different types of technologies being explored in an individual sense, right? Going into individual areas, going deep in those areas. But I think over time, as a society, I think as we start to adopt, we start to understand, and people start to learn how to use these technologies, we will see a convergence coming in, right? In terms of how generative AI is going to have an impact on blockchain and other different use cases itself. I think fundamentally it will come down to that. I think before we get there, I think we need to also start thinking about, right, like if we talk about Web 3, the principles behind it is around decentralization, it's about self-ownership, self-custody. Are we ready as a society to be able to actually go down that road yet? I'm not sure yet. I think it's something that people need to understand. We need to understand how that works, how that operates. Right? And we need to have some experience. I mean, if you think about it, even when we go from when the first iteration of the internet, it wasn't widespread. People didn't know how to use it, right? And then we went into the Web 2, where you'll be able to interact and be able to interact with websites and all that, and it becomes now second nature. I think it takes time. The learning curve is going to come down, right? So the time to market is going to be much shorter. But it will be an eventuality, I think, that we will all have to learn how to actually manage our own digital identities in that sense.
Okay, thanks a lot, John. We're almost out of time, so I guess in terms of, just to close off our session, we'd like to probably get one key takeaway that you'd like to share with the audience before we leave this session. Probably Reuben, you want to start?
Yeah, so I think these technologies, the emerging technologies, are really exciting. Web 3.0, as we said, it's going to help with, when investment meets investment asset meets investor and banking and customers. One of the things that I think is a key is that, historically banking has not had great customer experience ratings. This should help improve that with the fact that we'll be able to have tailored solutions and also more efficient solutions. So I think it'll help in growth and efficiency. So I think that's a key thing.
Okay, thanks, Reuben. Frankie?
Sorry, maybe I quote someone. A few years ago, I was working in Citibank. Our group CEO, Mark Corbett, he said one sentence: Citibank is not a bank. It is an IT company with a banking license. Another quote is from our local DBS CEO, Pish Gupta. He said, DBS act less like a bank, more like a tech company. So what does these two big, actually bank CEOs share with us is technology is not silo. Technology is a journey of the banking transformation. So let's look forward to this journey.
Thanks a lot, Frankie. And last but not the least, John?
I think my only thought is really that we just need to keep experimenting, we need to keep trying, we need to have conversations, we need to find ways to collaborate. I think that's really the premise around how Web3 is going to operate, right? So it's really about being able to come together and work together for this new future itself, right? So definitely looking at how do we actually work together and let's just do it, right?
Okay, well, thanks a lot, everyone. One more final word from you? No. Okay, I thought you were going to say something else, Reuben. Yeah, so with that, let's give our panelists a round of applause. And yeah, before we leave, let's take one nice photo for everyone. 1, 2, 3, smile, guys.